I was 15, I remember, when I had my first sip of beer. I clearly remember it was 1989. I had left home after high school. Not drinking was harder than drinking. Because this is Friday evening, you're just done with your week, you deserve a beer. That's the story you're telling yourself. The more you drink, the cooler you are. Every day lost and every day that you're not present is a day that you're not present. But if you think about yourself from a children's point of view, for months, years, they are growing up thinking this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be. And being dependent on alcohol, it has definitely undermined parts of my parenting roles that I'm not proud of. Back in the day when I was drinking, I would say yes to most invites. There are a lot of parties were not worth going to. Everywhere you go, there is alcohol right next to you. Either those friends leave you or you may choose not to be with them. Irrespective, you lose friends. I was good friends with a few people. I don't think that friendship remains now. So these three things really became the perfect storm for me to say one morning that I quit. I felt like I had not slept in a long time. That is how deep I slept. And I woke up with so much clarity in my head. And people who drink don't know this. I didn't know that. What is the beauty and the effect of a deep, long night of sleep? Most people who drink don't know that, don't realize that. They've forgotten that. So when you don't drink, you are eating better, you're eating on time, you're much more in control. And for a habit that was 35 years old, it's not easy to have to say no every time. I'm really grateful that I chose this. The amount of presence that I can feel when whatever I'm doing with my children is incredible. Again, I'm hoping it's not coming across as a preacher. I'm not preaching anybody to quit drinking, but I'm just sharing from my own experience.
Hey Subhasis,
Hi, Rudri. Morning.
good morning. So, why did you quit alcohol?
Yeah, it's a heavy question. Why did I quit alcohol? It's a long story, but the main reason why I quit alcohol was I found myself not being present with my children. There are a couple of events that happened where I was not present for my children as a dad when it mattered, and that really closed this whole deal for me. I was thinking about quitting, not quitting, but this basically nailed it for me. And that's the big reason I quit.
What's your journey with alcohol?
Yeah, what's my journey with alcohol? It's a long journey. I was 15, I remember, when I had my first sip of beer. I clearly remember it was 1989. I had left home after high school from my parents' home to Bhubaneswar to go to college. And I just had my first sip of beer out of curiosity to taste how alcohol feels, because you are a sort of a growing teenager. There are kids talking about beer and drinking, and so you just have a first sip. So that's how it started. And what it did was it gave me immediate acceptance with a couple of my friends who I was becoming good friends with. And then alcohol or beer became that third companion that you wanted to be with in order to be with friends. So that's how it started. And it was for a long time, it was just fun, drinking with friends. It did not have any sort of effect for a long time. Like a lot of, it's very normal for kids who are going to college to have a couple of beers every now and then. But then as I started working and as I started, becoming older and older, I found myself getting more and more hooked onto alcohol. Again, not in a way that you think the worst case scenario, like we all have grown up watching alcoholics, people who are rolling in the streets, people are falling over. It was not like that, right? It was still very, very elegant. You go to a bar, you go to a party, and you drink. So to you, your mind, you're telling that I'm fine, I'm normal. I have nothing, no problem. And then, of course, I was away from my parents for a long time. So I did not have to come home and face them. And so everything worked out fine. I became good friends. I became popular. I started having a lot of friends. And at the time, at 20, 21, 22, you want to be accepted. You want to have a big group of friends. You want to belong. And alcohol became that one thing that let you do all this. So I loved it. And it also brought out some personalities in you, right? You become a little bit more outspoken. And I used to love singing. So, music, parties, drinking, they all kind of came together. And it was great. For a long time, I had positive association of drinking with who I was as a human being. And I was doing fine in my studies, then I was doing well in my work. So none of this that was happening around drinking made me feel like there was any negative effect. Okay, of course, I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s. So that is the backdrop of my journey.
Then how it turned into a dependency?
Yeah. How did it turn into a dependency? There are times when I realize that if we were going out for a dinner to a restaurant, I would first check if that place is serving beer or alcohol or not. And if that place was not serving, then we'd automatically choose not to go there. That, again, didn't stick to my mind and didn't tell me that, wow, you're becoming dependent. But that was the beginning of how I made choice to open myself or to allow myself to drink than to not drink. In other words, not drinking was harder than drinking. So, for example, like I said, if the restaurant was not serving alcohol, I would not go there because it was harder for me to go and think of a meal without a drink. Or, for example, in the weekends, you work hard from Monday to Friday. Maybe I'm still in the 90s, in the beginning phase of my career, and I was doing fine. I was doing great in my work. In fact, I was succeeding really well. And once or twice in the weeknights, you go out with your colleagues to drink. And the same thing that happened during college, that you become more accepted, you become popular. I started getting the same success at work because when you go out with colleagues, you have deep conversations, you're having drinks, and that forms strong relationships. That's what you thought at the time. And I was like, wow, this is really giving me a lot of advantage by going out and drinking with my colleagues because I'm forming strong relationships with them. Not knowing the side effects or the negative effects, will come to that. And so we would do that. So then it became a habit. So you won't go to a work dinner and not think about drinking. You will drink. Then come the weekend on a Friday evening, let's say I was going out with my wife, you tell yourself, well, it's Friday evening, so we have to have a drink because we've had a week. So you think that the drink will help you get over the work week. It'll start your weekend. So these are the stories that I was feeding myself, and I'm pretty sure I was not alone. I mean, the whole world thinks like that. That you have a work week, come Friday afternoon, you want to start your weekend by having a couple of drinks. It's very normal, happy hour, right? And I never thought that, do you really have to drink now? I never allowed myself that question. I could never imagine not drinking on a Friday evening. How could you not drink? Because this is Friday evening, you're just done with your week, you deserve a beer. That's the story you're telling yourself. And then you drink on Friday evening, then the weekend kicks in. Saturday morning, of course, you are waking up late because you are hungover, and somehow you spend the day on a Saturday. But on Saturday evening is Saturday evening again. The story you tell yourself that it's weekend, and You have to have a big party. So you have to go out and drink a lot. Again, in your early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, it was perfectly normal to drink. And in fact, the more you drink, the cooler you are. Because people are talking about how much you can drink. How much drink can you handle? How much can you drink and still be in control? These are the kind of signs of your strength. And that is what feeds in this society, right? So the more you drank, but you still had your control, the cooler you are. And I started developing that persona that, wow, look at Subhasis. He can handle his drinks. He can hold his drinks. He can still drink a lot and then nothing happens to him. And you feel strong. So these were some of the ways in which I started becoming involved, and my life started becoming really intertwined with alcohol, with all kinds of positive associations. And any negative association that it came, if somebody says, you read once in a while that alcohol is not good for your health, you tell that, well, that's not for me, it's for other people, or it's for older people. I'm young, I'm fine, I'm active, I'm healthy, I'm successful, I'm doing great at work, I have a great relationship with my wife. This is not for me. Alcohol is perfectly fine for me. That's the story you tell yourself.
When did you realize that you are dependent to alcohol?
I think those dependencies, I was in denial. You know that you are dependent. But the stories that I told you, the stories that I just shared, are so powerful and so deeply woven into your head that you silence any voice that is coming from inside you of any sense of dependency. Maybe a whisper goes inside your heart, in your mind. Maybe when you've had a big drinking night, you're waking up, you're feeling terrible, you're not able to wake up. It's 11 o'clock in the morning, you're still not able to get out of bed. Maybe that time you feel really bad. If I now can think how bad I was feeling, your head is spinning, your mind is completely incoherent, you don't know what happened last night. Maybe at the time, I'm pretty sure my inner voice told me, hey, this is not normal. But I'm pretty sure I squished that voice. I completely silenced that voice. And I somehow got through that physical pain of hangover and headache, and your mind completely been in complete scatters because you want to negate that story. You want to silence that whisper. And this went on for a long time. And of course, it does come in the way. I did, it's not like everything that you do at work has a positive effect because of your drinking. There are negative effects of your drinking. I remember there are again times when I could have done a better job of showing my discipline, showing my own strength as a professional, and not known to me, I showed up less than that. Now I can relate to that, or now I can think and look at it objectively. At the time, I'm again pretty much in denial. I did not even think more about it, didn't analyze why did I not show up well in this meeting? Well, because I was hungover. And when you are hungover, you cannot show up in your best self in a meeting. It's absolutely going to happen. But at the time, you joke about it. Well, I was hungover. Because supposedly you are doing well at work and you are succeeding, you're a successful professional. You joke about being hungover. Everybody jokes about being hungover. Oh, I was hungover. And they laugh about it and they move on. The point is, with every big drinking night, with every hangover the next morning, if it happens over months, weeks, months, years, you don't realize that you are undermining your potential. you could have been more successful. You could have demonstrated more of your capabilities as a professional. We don't see that. I didn't see that. I thought either it was common to have terrible days after big drinking nights, even if it's a work day, and I laughed it off with others. But slowly, somewhere, I was undermining my own potential. Now, looking back, I can see it. I didn't see it at that time. Similarly, relationships. Alcohol has an effect on your body and mind that takes away from clarity, that takes away from being present. The whole reason you drink alcohol is to escape, right? To escape. And if you escape, you are not present. When you're having drinks with friends or your wife or your loved ones, you think you are present, but you're not. Again, I'm hoping it's not coming across as a preacher. I'm not preaching anybody to quit drinking, but I'm just sharing from my own experience how clouded your mind becomes. And when you are not present for your relationships, it affects the relationship. Again, you are in denial and you are telling yourself that no, it's fine. Everything is fine. I love my wife loves me, and everything is fine. It's not fine. Again, you could have been more present for occasions, for the quality time that you should spend with your loved ones.
So, how it started affecting your personal life and your professional life?
Yeah, it's like I shared. I this is all looking back, right? It's like in the rear view mirror. When you're driving a car, you're looking at the rear view mirror. Now I'm looking at the rear view mirror, and now I'm thinking, for those meetings, for those projects that I could have done a much better job, I probably did not do as good a job at work. How did I pay for it? It's very hard to quantify. My only way to think about it is, had I not done this, or had I not shown up in a less than best manner, I would have done a better job in that project, in that conversation, in that initiative. And maybe things should have been much, much even better than I have had. And that is the message that I want to give to all the successful professionals. Because most people who have dependency on alcohol are actually functional, successful people. I'm not talking about people who are in the rehab. I'm not talking about people who are so addicted that they are homeless or they are in the streets. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a big part of the world where everyone is successful, they have relationships, they have strong work careers, but they're being undermined because of alcohol dependency. So the effect is silent, the effect is quiet, but the effect is there nevertheless. Same with relationships. We're talking about not just marriage. Then I became a dad, I became a father. And again, dads are, in our society, in our culture, it's perfectly acceptable for fathers, dads, to have a couple of drinks. It's normal, it's acceptable. So you go out with your kids are playing, you're having a couple of beers with your friends who are also parents, you're having a great time, it's all good. When it ceases to be good and when it turns bad is when you don't hold the line. And that couple of beers with other fellow dads and moms becomes longer sessions. when you go out and you come back home late in the night, next day morning you are waking up with a big hangover again. Your kids want to play with you, but you don't have the energy to play with them, right? What do you tell yourself then? You tell yourself that what I told myself is that, well, I'm working hard, I'm doing all my parenting roles, I love my children love me, I have a great relationship with my children, with my wife, so I deserve to have had a long night, and it's okay if I can't play with them now. You justify this, and you keep justifying it, not realizing that every morning lost with your children is a morning lost, right? Every day lost and every day that you're not present is a day that you're not present. And it keeps on accumulating. I didn't realize that. And I didn't realize the effect that the children are seeing when they're from their standpoint. If your children are saying that my dad will wake up late on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning, and if that is what they have told themselves, how unfortunate it is that your kids are growing up thinking that my dad is not going to wake up early to play with me. Now we normalize all that. I have normalized that. I know better now, but I know I have normalized that. But if you think about yourself from a children's point of view, for months, years, they are growing up thinking this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be. Then you realize how unfortunate it is. Right? And when you think about it later, clearly, without any influence of alcohol, and ask yourself, how would you have felt? Then you realize how bad it is.
Normalizing reality is like the slow poison.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for a long time, I've been running a podcast on fatherhood. I'm a deeply involved father. And I'm proud to say, I have a great relationship with my children, but I'm also equally comfortable in saying that by me drinking and being dependent on alcohol, it has definitely undermined parts of my parenting roles that I'm not proud of. I can say that looking back. At the time, of course, that's how life teaches you, right? Life doesn't teach you when it's happening. You learn after it has happened. And now looking back, and I'm not going into this mode of regrets, I'm going into the mode of learning. You learn from your life, and that's how I want to share this message, that in my own experience, I've had times and moments and phases where I could have been more present with my children. I could have spent a little bit more quality time as a dad than I did, and it's because of, and I would be comfortable in saying that alcohol had a role to play in that.
So when did the thought of giving up alcohol has came in?
Yeah, when did the thought of giving up alcohol came in? It happened sometime in the middle of 2024. I was on a career break, and after a long career of 25 years of working in the corporate world, I decided to take a break. And basically, I gave myself time and space to just reflect on life, right? And that led to a lot of reflection on how my life has been, both from my mental health standpoint. I've been very good in terms of physical health and, in terms of exercise, running, keeping a good diet, all of that I have followed. But I had not paid as much attention to mental health. And this break, I gave myself to reflect on that. So as a part of that exploration, I started doing therapy. And the therapy conversations definitely came back to alcohol because you have to go back to your childhood, your youth days. And what I found out from through therapy is that when we think of drinking, we think of socializing, being with friends. The other side of that, underlying in your mind, is you're trying to numb yourself. You're trying to numb your pain. So, for example, I shared that I left home at a very young age. I got separated from my parents because I had to go study. What happens when you leave home? You undergo it sort of a trauma. Now, the trauma can show up in different ways. Some kids are able to handle that. Some kids are not. For example, in my case, I knew that I was struggling with being away from home, being away from my parents, and I've talked about it. When I drank alcohol, that pain went away. You don't know that at the time because you're just 15, 16, you don't really correlate to this. So mostly coming back to your question, I realized that basically I was numbing my pain and I was avoiding some underlying pain. Similarly, some people can have anxiety and depression. And in order to address that, or in order to not suffer from that, they drink. So as I started doing more and more of this reflection, I realized that there is a reason why I'm dependent. So why not address that? Why not address your own underlying past? And maybe that will allow you to think of life without needing to numb your pain. So that was one aha moment I had, which gave me some perspective that I can be with myself, I can process my own self and be present with myself without any dependency. Not that I immediately did that, but that was one big moment. Second big moment was my diagnosis of ADHD, which again happened as a part of this process of exploration. And turns out that I have been living with ADHD for my entire life without knowing. And ADHD has a big, strong mutual correlation between ADHD and drinking, which I've talked about in the past episodes and in some of my past communication. That again, it helps you manage your ADHD, manages your racing brain. You feel calmer. It calms your brain. So that was another way of me understanding what is happening in the body, in the brain, that is leading for me to be dependent on alcohol, right? Again, in a functional way. The third, as I shared at the beginning of this conversation, is I realized that I wasn't, at times when it mattered, I wasn't present for my children. So these three things really became the perfect storm for me to say one morning that I quit. And it was the hardest thing that I had done in my life. I had constantly, forever avoided that decision. I would think about it many times along the way of my life, but I would just run away from that decision. But this time, I had so much clarity that I said I quit.
How did the journey started?
The post-quitting journey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say The post-quitting journey has been the most transformative journey of my life. It starts literally to manifest in days and weeks and months, and I'll touch on that. The first few days were really hard because you have never done that ever in your life. You have never not drunk. So as soon as I decided to quit, I was staring at today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and the fact that I was not going to drink freaked me out. It literally freaked me out. I couldn't really see past those days. It was that hard, and I'm not kidding. Only because I told myself that I will never drink again. If I told myself that I'm not going to drink for a month, maybe it was not going to be that hard, right? Because a lot of people do dry January. We're in January. They'll say, I've had a lot of drinks. It was a big Christmas holidays, whatever. I'm going to just stay off of alcohol for 30 days. And I think I had, somewhere I told myself that I'm not going to drink. It's very hard to say I'm never going to drink. And I would suggest people not to do that. Don't say I will never drink, because it's a big, big burden, big mountain on your shoulders. Start by saying, I'm just going to experiment with not drinking. Maybe for a couple of weeks, maybe for a month, and see how I feel. So coming back to your question, while it was hard, right? I found myself I vividly remember first 2-3 nights, the way I slept, like the quality of my sleep was unbelievable. The way I woke up the first 2-3 nights, and now of course I'm used to that deep sleep, I felt like I had not slept in a long time. That is how deep I slept. And I woke up with so much clarity in my head. And people who drink don't know this. I didn't know that. What is the beauty and the effect of a deep, long night of sleep? Most people who drink don't know that, don't realize that. They have forgotten that. And I had forgotten about it. I had never experienced such deep sleep ever in my life. And that's the first thing that I remember, that I was waking up with such clarity in my head, such restedness. I felt, wow, this feels amazing. So anybody who is thinking about how am I supposed to feel, the biggest benefit you'll feel is the beauty of how you wake up feeling. Everything looks brighter, everything looks sharper, you feel clear, and you're so much more present that morning. So that's the first thing that I experienced. And then, the effect continues for weeks and months. Then you slowly, and I've done a lot of research on the effect of not drinking in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, in 3 months. Because the more you spend your time not drinking, you're wondering what is happening. So even for a layman like me, I know that your body starts to heal. Your nervous system starts to heal and calms down. Because when you're drinking, even in a matter of days, you're constantly feeding your nervous system a roller coaster ride. Because as soon as it's settled down, you put alcohol in your body, again, there's a roller coaster ride there that your body and mind goes. When you walk away from that, your body just settles down. Your heart, your lungs, your entire system just stabilizes. And I could feel that. And I also could feel the impact of that in my running, in my exercise, all of that. So there's a lot of benefits that you can get on the physical side and on the mental side, on emotional side, and then on and on. So those are the first experience of the first week and, let's say first couple of months of not drinking.
Do you find any physical health changes after quitting?
Yeah, tremendous. There are tremendous benefits that you accrue and experience on the physical front. Like I said, your diet becomes much more controlled. When you are in this whole habit of drinking, again, unbeknownst to you or subconsciously, you end up eating badly. Even if you're a healthy eater, like I said, I was a healthy eater, but when you are having a few drinks, you end up eating some more food with alcohol because you can't keep drinking. You have to eat while drinking. A lot of times you eat late, so your digestive system goes for a toss because you've had drinks and you are eating late. It affects your sleep, but it also affects your digestive system. So when you don't drink, you are eating better, you're eating on time, you are much more in control. Because when after a few beers, your ability to choose good food over bad food is less low. You can say, well, I'm just having a couple of more fries now, or I'll have a few more, you know, juicy burgers. That may not be good for your health. When you are not drinking, you can make that choice that I'll only have a, burger maybe once in a couple of weeks. For most part, your diet becomes better, your sleep becomes better, and because of these fundamental changes, you are able to produce more output no matter what you do, whether you are working out, whether you're running, going to work, coming back from work, during the workday. It all your productivity starts to improve a lot, which again I didn't really give enough credit to because I didn't give myself that chance. If that makes sense.
So every positive side has a negative side. After quitting,
Yeah.
what are the difficulties that you have faced?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that question. So, after quitting, it's not like everything becomes absolutely great. I would say a lot of things are incredible, and I can't stop talking about the positive benefits, but there is a lot of difficulty. The most difficult part is social life and just your life in general. Your life becomes a lot more boring because you're not going out as much. Back in the day when I was drinking, I would say yes to most invites, right? Not because I loved going to that party, but because I knew that I would get to drink. And you think of that going out on a Saturday or a Friday or anything, a part of you goes saying, okay, I'm going to be drinking a few beers then. Then you become very happy thinking about that during your drinking days. When you're not drinking, every invite that comes to you, you think, is it worth going or not? And then you get a real clear answer. Turns out that a lot of parties were not worth going to. So I started saying no because I know I was going to not drink and be with people who I didn't really enjoy being with. So what's the point of going? The same decision I could not do before. Because as soon as the invites would come, I would say yes. Because I could not differentiate between people and alcohol. Right? And once you have had a few drinks, everybody looks great. You think you're having great conversations with everyone. Turns out that you're not. Turns out that you don't even enjoy some people when you are not with alcohol. And the idea of spending an evening with people that you don't enjoy being with was not acceptable to me very, very quickly. I'd rather be home with kids. And I chose to be home. So from a overall standpoint, I experienced that my social life became very, very dull. I was happy. You feel happy in a different way. Your happiness comes in a different way. But the classical definition of happiness or enjoyment, the way that we associate, of going out and socializing, going to different kinds of events and parties, that goes away. And to be honest with you, there's a grief about it because it's a loss. I still grieve about it. I still feel, wow, I had a great social life. Now I don't. I still mourn those days of my past. Just the way you grieve losing things or losing people, you grieve your old you too. You feel that you lost a bit of you. I won't lie. And then I'm choosing to live with that grief, knowing the incredible benefits that I'm getting to gain from my health, my mental health, my work, my focus, my clarity, my relationships. All those are great. But to your question, there are difficulties. There are other ways in which you may find difficulties to deal with as well. Losing a few friends. I won't lie. I was good friends with a few people. I don't think that friendship remains now. And you realize that a lot of that friendship had one big foundation, that is alcohol. And when you take that away, you realize that either those friends leave you or you may choose not to be with them. Irrespective, you lose friends. So that is one of the difficult things that you have to grapple with, if that makes sense.
So it's been 500 days. How do you see this 500 days, whole 500 days journey?
Yeah, I'm in that incredible point of 500 days of alcohol-free living. First of all, I think about it with a lot of gratitude. I'm really grateful that I chose this. Really, really grateful. And I'll tell you why. First, fatherhood, right? The amount of presence that I can feel when whatever I'm doing with my children is incredible. And I must say that I've spent incredible amount of quality time with them in this new life. Not that I didn't spend time with them before. I spent a lot of time. I've always prioritized being with children. But because of not having the influence of anything else, it's hard to describe in words. You are able to have a conversation with them that you feel is different. You're able to go deep into things, right? You are able to think about future clearly. You are able to plan things better. At work, you are always focused. You don't have any days of hangover dealing with, that roller coaster ride of weekdays, drinking, hangover, recovering. You don't realize how much time you waste in going through that cycle. First, drinking takes a lot of time. Then recovering from drinking takes even more time. And by the time you recover, it's time to drink again. So you are never really coming out of the cycle. Now that the whole cycle has gone, I'm able to think about things in a more steady, planned way because there's no obstruction, there's no distraction. And these are very subtle benefits. These are not benefits that you can say, oh, today made a difference. But for example, I've been really, really productive in my last 500 days of life. And when I say productive, I'm not saying work-wise. I'm seeing everything. the way you pursue your purpose, the way I do this podcast, the way I engage on the social front, I've been able to put more of myself into everything that I do. Because just by the sheer fact that that cycle that I talked about of spending time on drinking, recovering from drinking is gone. So basically, just mathematically, I have more time, right? Just pure mathematics. And then add to that your clarity and your health and your feeling of absolutely being present. It all adds up. So the last 500 days has been absolutely blissful. And of course, like I said, there have been difficult moments as well. But yeah, I'm super proud. And every day I'm grateful for being alcohol free, being sober. And one of the things I realized that you can tell yourself that you have quit alcohol. That doesn't mean that you're not going to deal with the temptation. Even now I go out to parties. Even now I go out with friends. And everywhere I go, even when I go with my wife for a date night, for dinner, everywhere you go, there is alcohol right next to you. And for a habit that was 35 years old, it's not easy to have to say no every time. Every time you go out for dinners, every time you go for a work dinner, it's right there. And still, there's a lot of people who will say, hey, just one beer. What happened? I mean, you're not drunk for 1 year. What will one beer do? Just have one for me. There isn't a week goes by that you confront this situation. So the point I'm making is quitting is hard, but staying quit is harder. Because you have to make that choice every day, every week, every weekend, every social outing, one outing at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time. You have to keep working hard.
I have two questions. How do you deal with the temptation and with that social pressure?
Yeah. Yeah, how do I deal with temptation and social pressure? Like I said, it's you have to be anchored to your shift really deeply. If you have chosen to quit, and by no means I'm preaching anyone to follow my life, everyone needs to approach their alcohol journey based on their own life and their own choices. I'm not preaching to anyone. I'm the last guy to preach. But to me, the best way to deal with change is to shift your identity. Because when you shift your identity, that you tell yourself that I am living alcohol free, I am living dependency free, then it's easy to make choices no matter where you go. If you tell yourself that I'm trying not to drink, then it's hard. When you're trying to not do something, it's very hard. But when you're choosing to be something else, to be someone, then it's easier. When you say, I am a sober person, I choose to live alcohol free, it's more empowering. I'm a healthy person. I'm a more present person. Then it's easy to go into any situation and stick to your identity. But if you go to a situation saying, I'm not going to drink, then the probability of you falling into that temptation is much higher. That makes sense? Yeah. So that's how I deal with temptations. Otherwise, I have to keep reminding myself of waking up tomorrow morning free, the way I feel every day morning. The beauty of waking up, having a hot cup of coffee, looking into the sky, watching the sunrise, or being with your family, absolutely clear, or going for a run, feeling absolutely pumped. I remind myself how I feel, and then that is easy for me to deal with, the temptation.
With the social pressure?
Yeah, with the social pressure. It's still hard, I won't lie. It's still hard. because I know how it feels to have had a couple of drinks, how easy the conversation flows. But now it's a lot easier. First thing I do is I do have a drink. I try to have a non-alcoholic drink. So I have gotten so much research on non-alcoholic beers. I'm not kidding. Every time I go, everywhere I look for non-alcoholic beers, and there's plenty. And the more you, and then the good news is the world, the younger generation is also choosing to be sober curious these days. So there are more and more options coming out every day. So I try to have a drink and try to have a drink that makes me not feel like I'm a social outcast or I'm sort of this lone man standing or I'm standing out. So I'll have a drink, I'll have a conversation. I try to have a good conversation with folks. I tend to go out with friends who respect my choice. And when your friends respect who you are, then it's easy to not drink. There are some friends who actually will push you to drink for many reasons, and I won't go into the reasons. But there are some friends who have accepted who I am, and it's easy for me to be myself with them. And that's how I kind of manage my social life. But I can tell you that if those people are wondering, oh my God, my social life is going to be a dreadful thing, I'm going to be a social outcast, I'm promising that it will not. You just have to adapt to your new identity, do what feels comfortable, have a drink, have a non alcoholic drink, have a fresh lime and tonic water in a party. Nobody will see. Because if everyone's having a gin and tonic and you have a fresh lime and tonic, nobody will know that you don't have gin in your drink. So you feel kind of, you blend in. So I'm saying these practical tips because this matters. You make choices based on this. I don't want anybody to feel like you have to be home, you have to be hiding in your house just because you quit or just because you are choosing to go alcohol free for a few weeks. You don't have to. You live your life the way you do, but you adapt and you blend in. And the other thing is you communicate to people that I'm testing this new lifestyle. I'm experimenting with a new lifestyle. And then if you stick to that, people will accept you. And your true friends will absolutely accept you if they're really true friends. And that's how you kind of manage your life.
So somebody who wants to quit alcohol now, so how their first week is gonna look like? How is their first 3 months are gonna look like? How is their first 1 year is gonna look like? How is their first 500 days?
Yeah, so it's a very, very progressive journey. I would say if somebody wants to try, who has never tried, to try this sober experiment, as I mentioned earlier, it's good to start small. First, have a very deep understanding of why you want to do this. So that why is important. But once you've decided, even then, don't say, I'm going to quit alcohol forever or I'm going to quit this dependency forever. Start small. The first week, the first weekend actually, understand what you're going to do. Have a plan for what you're going to do when you're not drinking. If you're used to going to doing a certain ritual, because it all becomes rituals. My Saturday evenings, I have 3 glasses of whiskey. Like all this becomes ritual. So you should try and have a clear path for how you're going to spend that time. If you're just sitting there doing exactly what you do, but without alcohol, it's going to be very hard. So you might choose to see somebody. For example, in my first weekend, I remember going out for a long walk around the lake with a friend of mine. So I set the tone of that weekend by shifting from meeting this friend for drink to going for a walk with him by the lake. So I gave the message to myself that this is going to be a different day. So try and identify something that you really love and do that. So that I think those first weeks, try to do things that you love or try to be with people that you love. I think that gives you the strength, because you cannot do this alone. It's a very lonely journey. You want to have your band of army, your people with you. So if it's your partner, your spouse, your kids, or your best friend, or whoever it is, you want to tell them that you're trying this and try to spend that time in the first weeks and a few weeks actually. Once you get past that month, your body and your mind will start to build a routine, so it's much easier. For example, I built my routine in a ways that for example, I used to have a beer for a Saturday lunch. So I made sure that I had a non-alcoholic drink, non-alcoholic beer for my Saturday lunch. So I didn't feel like I lost my ritual. I still had my ritual. It's just that there was no alcohol in it. And I felt great. So I think slowly as you start to fill up your day and weeks, you'll start to feel better. The other thing is you have to pursue things that you really love. For example, I love running, so I tried to schedule my running in ways that filled up the space. For example, Sunday afternoons I went for a run. Saturdays I started doing more podcasting. So I do things that I love, so you'll miss your not drinking that much less. And then slowly as you start to spend more time, you experience the beauty of the positive benefits, then you will feel better and better about this new life. But my advice is, don't give yourself that massive mountain that I have quit forever. That'll just add a lot of pressure. Try for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and slowly it'll take one step at a time.
So, how was your anxiety, stress while you're drinking, and how do you deal with that now?
Yeah, how was my anxiety and stress during drinking? I would say I had massive amount of anxiety and stress during my drinking days. I just used to tell myself that I'm going to calm it all down with a few drinks. And you can only do it for a first couple of drinks, but then it comes back. It comes back with more. So if you're anxious and if you're drinking, you'll get more anxious. So I remember being always kind of at that level of anxiety all the time, which I didn't realize then. Like I would be always saying, let's go, let's go, let's go now. I'll be always in a rush. I'll be in some kind of a hurry to go something, do something, go somewhere. I didn't realize that that's how my brain has gotten wired. Because drinking compresses time. So your concept of time is always the next hour, the next day. You're not able to think in months, years, and life. You're always going from one day, this weekend, next week, next month, in that compressed timeline because you're drinking it. It reshapes your brain. So you are more likely to be anxious. So now I have to sit with myself. So this time has slowed down. I'm not in any rush or an urgency. I still have a little bit of that. I'm not saying that I'm completely got rid of it, but I'm a lot less in a rush than I used to be. I'm a lot less in a hurry to the next thing than I used to be. I'm able to sit with somebody, with a piece of work, with my own thoughts, with my own self, with a lot more calmness than I could. So I don't know if it makes sense, but that's how it is.
Yeah, understood. So, how do you deal with boredom and discomfort?
That's a great question. How do you deal with boredom and discomfort? The reality of living an alcohol-free life is you have to sit with your discomfort because you don't have the crutch of a couple of drinks to push away your discomfort. If you have, like I said, a trauma or a grief or a sense of loss or any difficult emotion inside you, you have to confront it. You have to face it. You have to sit with it. So I've had to sit with all my difficulties without this crutch. Then you take steps of how do I resolve this? It comes in even relationships. If you want to have a difficult conversation with someone, with alcohol you can avoid it and you can feel like you have resolved that. But now I know that I have to have that hard conversation with someone. If someone's behavior or if any interaction is not something that I am enjoying, I have to address it. I have to share that with that human being. And that's uncomfortable. But I have a lot more confidence and a lot more comfort in having that uncomfortable conversation. I didn't have that before. Even when I was not drinking, during my drinking days, you struggle because you lose your strength and confidence to have hard conversations, to do hard things, to sit with a thought, to sit with an idea, because nothing happens right away. Things take time. And without alcohol, I'm able to sit with things a lot more longer.
So how do you deal with high pressure moments now?
Yeah, how do I deal with high pressure moments? Is the same. It's an extension of what I just shared. I'm able to leverage more of my resources with high pressure situations without the dependency. Again, it's hard to draw a correlation, but for difficult situations in life, I feel that I have much more strength to deal with that now that I live in my life. Again, I don't want to come across as if I am giving credit to not drinking for everything good in my life. I don't mean to say that. I think we all have our strengths, whether you drink or not. I want to acknowledge that. My only point is that when you don't drink or when you are not dependent, you just get stronger emotionally and psychologically. So you're able to bring more of yourself to any situation. So a hard life, a harder situation, a difficult moment feels like you can handle it better than I could in the past.
So who is this episode addressing to?
Who is this episode addressing to? That's a great question. So this episode, this conversation, this message is for all of you, anybody who's listening, who feels that they are successful and they have good relationships, they're doing well at work, but they have a struggle with dependency on some substance. Could be alcohol, could be something else. This is for all of you who are struggling with something of a dependency, but you feel like you are successful and you're functional, therefore you don't need to resolve. My story and my life is a great example of me being in denial of my struggles because I was successful, because I was a functioning family man. But that is what I had to resolve. So now that I know that I can live a better life, I can have better relationships, I can do better at work, I can put myself more to the pursuit of life, to my purpose of life. It's for all of you who have big dreams, big ideas, big goals, but you are not able to do them because you are struggling silently with dependency. You just feel like you will do it tomorrow, you are procrastinating. This is for you. Once you get past this dependency, you will realize how much power, how much strength, how much more of what you have to offer to yourself, to your loved ones, to your work, and to your life, and to the world.
So what do you want to tell to a 15-year-old Subhasis who just started drinking?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. What do I want to tell my 15-year-old self? Again, like I mentioned, I don't want to look at my life through I don't look at my life through a lens of regret. Would I have not drunk? Maybe no. I don't want to tell myself that I should never have drunk. I'm happy I ended up drinking alcohol. I'm happy I've experienced what I've experienced. What I would have told maybe a younger self is I should have listened to my own inner voice before, a little bit earlier, and maybe paid close attention to how my dependency was influencing my life and maybe addressed it. That's what I would say. But I do not want to either tell myself or to anyone that everything that I have done is a wash. I do not want to have any regrets. I just want to take learnings and then utilize those learnings for future.
So finally, advice for all the curious dads out there.
Yeah, finally, this is a podcast. This is a conversation. This is a show about fathers and dads. So my 2 cents to all you dads and moms. I always think about everyone, parents, is that if you are curious about a sober life, get started, take a small step, and give yourself the opportunity to experience life as a sober, curious person, and then make a choice based on how you feel. But then you would have given yourself the opportunity. Do not give yourself the opportunity. Give yourself the chance to taste and experience a sober life. If you don't like it, feel free to do what you choose to do, but at least you can tell yourself that I gave myself a chance. And I am an example of having given myself a chance, and I feel incredible strength and power and happiness and joy and meaning and purpose in this sober life. But then you choose that for yourself.